Tired of trying diet after diet without results? Mochi Health offers a long-term weight loss solution personalized to your needs. Our board-certified obesity doctors and registered dietitians provide expert guidance to help you succeed. Eligible patients can access custom-formulated GLP-1 medication at an affordable set price delivered monthly. Take our free quiz at joinmochi.com and use code AUDIO40 for $40 off your first month. That's joinmochi.com.
Blog Talk Radio.
The following broadcast is brought to you by the iGolf Sports Network.
Golf Talk Live is sponsored by the iGolf Sports Network and Golf Tips Magazine. Here's Andrew to tell you more about our sponsors.
iGolf Sports is a live stream broadcast and media production company providing quality programming designed to attract the golfing enthusiast. And Golf Tips, the game's most in-depth instruction magazine, including reviews on the latest equipment, tips from top teaching professionals, all designed to help you improve from tee to green. Welcome to Golf Talk Live with your host, Ted Odorico. Join Ted each week as he speaks with some of the best in golf. This week's special guest will join us a bit later. But first up is another great discussion on Coach's Corner. So let's introduce tonight's Coach's Corner panel.
All right, good evening, everybody, and once again, welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and we've got a great show for you tonight. We're going to start things off here, in just a moment with the Coach's Corner segment, and then a little bit later on, I'm going to be joined by tonight's special guest, Dr. Bernacki, the president of the Golf Heritage Society. He'll be joining me on the second half of the show, back for probably, I think, the fifth or sixth time now. He's been here a number of times, always enjoy our conversations, and I think we'll have a good, robust one tonight. So thank you for tuning in live, and just remember you can go to the link blogtalkradio.com/golftalklive, and the show is live every Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Central here on that network. But for some reason, if you can't join live or you come in midstream, as they say, you can visit that link, blogtalkradio.com/golftalklive, and just scroll down to the on-demand section at any point, and you'll hear all or see all of the previously aired podcasts in their entirety. The recorded versions are there, and the most recent is always at the top. So after tonight's show, if you've missed part of it a little bit later on, not to worry, you can go and visit that link. And at the end of the show, when we do the not intro, but outro, if you will, you'll be able to hear some of the other great places that you can listen to the podcast as well. But as I mentioned, I'm going to be joined here by the Coach's Corner panel, and I've got one of the panelists on right now, so I'm going to introduce him. I'll also introduce the other one. She's running a few minutes late. Hopefully she'll be joining us in maybe midstream conversation, but I'll keep an eye out for her. First up, of course, is John Decker. He's become a good friend as well. He's Director of Instruction at the Medallion Club in Columbus, Ohio. He's also a senior editor and top 25 instructor with Golf Tips Magazine. And he was a former head instructor at the Grand Cypress Academy of Golf in Orlando and was the 2015 Southern Teacher of the Year, and authored the book, Golf is My Life, Glorifying God Through the Game, which, of course, includes an accompanying Bible study, and also is available for public speaking. So if you're interested in that, at the end of the Coach's Corner segment, we'll give you some information, or John will, rather, and how you can connect with him and maybe get him out speaking at your club or organization. Also going to be joining me, hopefully, tonight on the panel is Sue Weger, and she is also #1 best-selling international author, motivational speaker, and peak performance coach. She's a 24-plus year LPGA Class A golf professional and owner of Weger Consulting. Her book is Golf, The Last 6 Inches, Change Your Brain, is available at Amazon.com. So right now I'm going to welcome John to the panel, and we'll keep an eye out, as I said, for Sue. But John, welcome to Coach's Corner.
Thank you, Ted, for having me on the show.
Not a problem. Always a pleasure. And I know we'll talk about, as I said, a little bit later on, you're working on your next book, which is sort of a complement, if you will, to your previous book. We'll get you talk a little bit about that, however much you want to give away as we wrap things up in this segment. But let's talk about, we're going to get into the conversation. As I said, I'll keep an eye out for Sue. Hopefully she'll be able to join us. And if not, you and I will, as we've done before, we'll hold down the fort. So the discussion we're going to talk about is some of the essential skills needed for golf. So golf is, much like other sports, is a motor skill, very much like karate, dancing, swimming, and even playing a musical instrument. It's a process that is learned and then relearned over time, and it's certainly not a problem that can be solved in just a few easy lessons. So these particular keys that we're going to talk about tonight, John, are, I think, essential developing some good fundamentals and working on, obviously, becoming a better golfer all the way around. So one of the first ones is the pre-swing fundamentals, things like the grip, the aim, posture, that sort of thing. So sort of the general fundamentals. So maybe just sort of break down each of them, what sort of, component, what their function is, why they're important, and why it's important to make sure that you get them right if you want to be successful, not only swinging the golf club well, but becoming a good player as well. So let's talk about the basic fundamentals or pre-swing fundamentals. As I mentioned, the grip, the posture, stance, that sort of thing, why they're important, each of them, and what you need to do to sort of keep them tuned up on a regular basis.
Well, Ted, this is a great question, and for the golfers that are just getting their season started, this is where when you're going out, and whether you're taking a lesson, whether you're going to the range just to hit some balls and kind of shake the rust off, this is where you want to start. Nicholas was very adamant about starting out every season looking at his grip, his ball position, his posture. All of those things are very important, and we all have tendencies that we kind of revert back to. So, I know for myself, I'm still constantly working on my grip. I made some slight adjustments in my grip recently, and I've seen a big improvement in my ball striking. So I know that no matter what your level is, you're never going to be good enough to where you don't have to work on your setup. And I've worked with tour players through the years on both the LPGA and PGA Tour, and the majority of times when I work with them, I'm working with them on their setup. It's not their swing. Their setup gets off, and then when the setup gets off, then the swing gets off. So, looking at the grip, that's one of the first things that you want to look at, because the grip is going to control the club face, and the club face is going to eventually control your swing. So if you have a bad grip, then you're going to have to make compensations in your golf swing to counter that. Ball position, to me, is one of the most important things that I look at. I use alignment sticks when I'm working with students, and you can simply put alignment sticks down. You can put one as your target line, and then you want to make an intersection with that with another alignment stick, so you're kind of essentially forming a T, and then the ball wants to kind of go at that intersection. So you can leave a little bit of space there, put the ball at that intersection, and that way when you're setting up to the ball, you can see where your left foot is, if you're a right-handed player, in relationship to that alignment stick that's forming that right angle. So ball position is critical. Most people, when I work with them, play the ball too far back in their stance, which takes away from their ability to shift their weight, takes away their power, and really they tend to hang back and leave all their weight on their back foot, their trail foot, as a lot of instructors will call it. And it's simply because of their ball position. You will eventually swing where the ball is. So if you have the ball in the wrong spot, you're going to develop a swing that's going to not be the right proper swing for you. And then, distance from the ball is another important thing. Obviously, every club in our bag has a different length to it, so your distance from the ball is critical. Making sure that you have enough room when you set up to the ball so that you can turn and you're not going to hit the ball or hit the club, move into the club or move into the ball. So you need to have enough space. Now, some students have too much space, so that's something that you could work with your teaching pro on, but make sure if you're going to take a lesson that you're hitting all these areas. Don't go into the lesson thinking, we're just going to work on our swing. Go and focus on the setup first, and then your pro can direct you from there. And then the last thing with the setup that I really look at is going to be, and it relates to the knee flex, but it's where your weight distribution is. Most students play the ball too far back play with their weight too far back in their heels. We want to make sure that the weight is up in the balls of the feet. So those are the key areas that I look for whenever I'm working with a student in their setup.
Yeah, and a lot of great points. And you're right. Nicholas talked about in his video from several years back, I think it was in the 80s, Golf My Way. He talked about how every season he would come out and work on the fundamentals. He wasn't really focusing so much on the swing as he was his fundamentals, because he knew that once the fundamentals were in its proper place, the swing would take care of itself. You don't often really forget how to swing the golf club, but a lot of times you might get the grip incorrectly, or you might be aiming incorrectly, or what have you. So I want to just a couple of follow-ups since we've got time. One is with the ball position. And again, depending on who you talk to, there's different variations. Some like to play a little bit closer to the middle of the stance for all clubs, and then maybe widen or narrow or widen their stance depending on which club, and of course appropriately standing the proper distance from the ball. Some like to play it a little closer to the left foot or left heel off that, a little bit closer. What are your thoughts here? Is there a preference? Is there a proper ball position that you feel that has been successful for you over the years? Or is there some room for some flexibility depending on the type of player?
Well, as far as, the way I was taught is the ball is played inside of the left heel. And this goes, there was a big transition in teaching that happened during the late 70s and early 80s. I mean, I grew up learning to play my driver off my left heel, my 5-iron, more in the middle of my stance, and my 9-iron more off the back of my stance. That was the way golf was taught. And there was a lot of knee drive, a lot of slide in the golf swing. You look at those old pictures of, Johnny Miller and stuff in the video of him, talking about, play the ball back in your stance. Well, when you have a lot of leg drive, you can do that, and you should do that. But if you look at the modern players, they're not doing that. And the reason for that is if you look at those older golf swings, the guys were getting there was no PGA Champions Tour, Senior Tour, anything along those lines. So the guys were pretty much done in their mid to late 30s. Their careers were over, and most of the time it was because of injuries, shoulder injuries, lower back injuries, because that puts a lot of wear and tear on your joints. Your hips are ball and socket joints. They're not designed to slide like that. So the modern player is playing the ball more forward toward the left heel, very much like Jack Nicklaus did, and they're using the rotation of their body to square up the club face. They're not using a lot of hands. They're not using a lot of manipulation in the hands, and that's why the grip is so important. They're just naturally allowing the club to release, and everything kind of lines up, and that's the way the modern golf swing is. So I play the ball more forward in my stance. I teach that right inside the left heel. Years ago, Tiger Woods was up here at Muirfield Village, and he was doing a clinic and I'm in Columbus, Ohio. So he was doing a clinic during the week of the Memorial, and someone asked him about ball position and moving the ball back in the stance. And he says, I'll move the ball back in the stance if I want to shape a shot. So a tour player, if they want to hook a ball around a tree or even cut a ball around a tree, they'll move the ball back in the stance because that allows them to use a little bit more of their hands to maneuver. And, these guys are obviously highly trained players that know what they're doing. But he said, when I move the ball back in my stance, I only move it one ball. They don't move it 6 or 8 inches back. He goes, I only move it one ball. And if you are going to have the ball more back in your stance, like if I've got a lot of wind and I'm hitting a knockdown shot and I'm trying to go under a tree or anything like that, and I do move the ball back in my stance, what I do to counter that is I open up my stance. That allows me to turn a little bit more through the ball, and I will resist the temptation to slide, because when you slide, that's when you drive the club into the ground. That's when you start hitting a lot of poor shots, a lot of deep divots, things like that. So I still like to make a shallow divot. I don't want to make a deep divot. So if I do move the ball back in my stance, like in a fairway bunker or going a low shot or going under a tree, I'll move it back one ball, open up my stance, and then I'll just go ahead and make my normal swing.
Right. And I agree with you as well. I think there have been a lot of change. I remember some of the old swings, as you mentioned, like Johnny Miller as an example, and had the classic reverse C, where, their upper body looked like it was bending backwards quite a bit, which in a sense it was, but it's because they were driving the hips and the legs so far into the ball and forward that it created that reverse seat posture. And even Nicholas, to a certain degree, not as much as Johnny Miller did, but Nicholas had it as well. But again, it created a more manipulation with their hands in order to meet that ball more effectively. And I agree with you. I think the swing shape now is much different than what it was, 20, 30 years ago. So obviously adjustments have had to be made in teaching the game as well. I want to touch on one other thing as we move to the next point. You kind of touched on this, was really club face control. And accuracy is a combination of aim and club face control. But if your aim is correct, but the ball will not hit the target if your club face is pointing in the wrong direction of impact. So again, that's could be affected by ball position and other factors as well. So this is another reason why I think the fundamentals are extremely important. So maybe you just want to touch about club face, because how do we make sure we have the correct club face? Because what I've seen, and I know you're going to go there anyways, is people will think they're aiming the club face and then take their grip, and it actually alters because they're not gripping it correctly. Talk a little bit about that, because it's important to make sure that once you've gripped the club, that club face is still pointing in the direction that you want the ball to go.
Tired of trying diet after diet without results? Mochi Health offers a long-term weight loss solution personalized to your needs. Our board-certified obesity doctors and registered dietitians provide expert guidance to help you succeed. Eligible patients can access custom-formulated GLP-1 medication at an affordable set price delivered monthly. Take our free quiz at joinmochi.com and use code AUDIO40 for $40 off your first month. That's joinmochi.com.
That's a great point, Ted. I mean, just to give you an idea, with the driver, if your club face is off 1 degree at impact, it's 8 yards out in the fairway. Okay, so it's going to be off 8 yards. So if you're aiming, let's say you're aiming right down the middle of the fairway, and you're off 1 degree, whether it's open or closed, it's going to either be left or right of your target, 8 yards. Well, think about that. If you're off 5 degrees, in most businesses, if I told you, you're only off 5 degrees, you're only off 5% or something like that, you would think, oh, I'm pretty good. Well, if I'm off 5 degrees with my driver, I'm 40 yards offline. I'm off the golf course. I'm going to be out of bounds. So that it doesn't seem like it's much, but then when you look at where the ball ends up, it's a tremendous amount. So a lot of times when you make a really good swing or a really bad swing, there's not a tremendous amount of difference. It's only a little bit, but that little bit can add up to a lot. So you bring up a very valid point. One of the things that you want to do when you're setting that club down is you want to make sure and aim it, and have that club face square before you're taking your grip. A lot of students will take their grip and they'll manipulate the club face, and then they'll worry about their ball position and all those other things. And I'm looking down at their club face. I'm like, oh, my goodness, this is aiming way left or way right of the target. So a lot of times I think most and I remember when I was first learning the game, like most golfers, I was a slicer when I first started. And most slicers will manipulate. They'll start turning that club face because they think, okay, well, this is how I can straighten out my slice. And it'll work for a little while. But then over time, you start creating more and more bad habits, and then the ball starts going way left. So it's important that you get that club face aimed properly. A lot of times I'll have students, put a 2x4 down on the ground and have them aim that club face or get the club face right up against the 2x4 so the club face is nice and square, and then I have them pull it back to where the ball is and then hit the shot. That way they're guaranteed to get the club face aimed properly every time. And that's something that everyone can do in their home is practice their grip and practice getting the club face up against like a book, lay something down on the floor. You can use sometimes you'll use the tile grout line or something like that just to get an idea and say, okay, this is what a square club face is, then take your grip. But that's a very important point.
Yeah, and as you pointed out as well, we see a lot of our amateur golfers gripping the club and then manipulating the face to meet their situation and in order to get it square. And ultimately what ends up happening is when they actually swing, because it's not square at impact, then all they're doing is they're swinging either slightly closed or slightly open club face and helping to cause certainly a slice or a hook or what have you. So it's extremely important, as you said, And that's a great tip or a great drill for people to do. It's very easy. You can do it at home. Don't have to be at the range to do it. It's something you can practice at home. You don't even have to swing a club. Just practice making sure that club face is square and then taking the grip afterwards. And that way you're going to be successful every single time. Here's another one, point 3 here I want to talk about. This is, again, many golfers don't strike but scoop the ball. So they have to understand how to get the ball in the air very early in their game. And what I mean by that in their game is early when they first start playing the game. Most don't understand what impact should look like. They're trying to lift the ball up in the air instead of letting the club do the work. Why don't you touch on a little bit of that? So in other words, we want to strike, not scoop the ball.
That is correct. We're hitting the ball with an iron with a descending blow. With the driver, we're hitting it on the upswing. But the number one reason why I see students scoop the ball is because they have too weak of a grip. It's either they have too weak of a left hand, they have too weak of a right hand. Sometimes it's both. Sometimes both hands are too weak. And when you have a weak grip, if I have someone with a weak grip and I had a magic wand and I could give them Tiger Woods' golf swing or a tour player's golf swing, and they were to swing with that weak grip, they would hit a shank. Because the tour player is rotating their body. They are not stopping their body and using their hands to square the club face up. They're using their body to square the club face up because their grip is, most of the guys on tour have really good grips. Some are a little weaker, like a John Rahm. Some are a little stronger. But they're by and large, they're all really good grips. So they can rotate their body, and the club will line up and be pointing at their target. If you have a poor grip, you can't do that. So you swing the club back. Now your club face is going to be open. Most students who have weak grips are going to have an open club face unless they do something to manipulate it. And so now if they were to rotate through, their club face is going to be even more open on the downswing. Because remember, when we're swinging the club, that club face is going to be moving. The centrifugal force is going to want to open that club face up. So the tour players have stronger grips so they can, as they rotate, they're not getting all that manipulation with the club face, and they can use their body to square it up. So it's very important to get the hands on there the proper way so that you can do this. Now, the scooping motion, once you get the student with the proper grip, then we've got to teach them to move their divot forward because they're used to hitting 4 or 5 inches behind the golf ball of that scooping motion. So a lot of times I'll put students who scoop the ball, I'll put them on a downhill lie to kind of get their weight to shift down the hill. Or I'll give them an impact drill. Or I've got tons of drills on my website. In fact, I'm getting ready to do an article for Golf Tips Magazine on this very thing about compressing the ball and making the divot. I won't give that away because I want the readers to read about it. But it's something that you can definitely learn how to do by making that weight shift. You can learn to make that divot in front of the ball. But to make a divot in front of the ball, it all starts with the grip.
And again, a lot of players out there, a lot of our amateur golfers really fall short in this area. And again, everything starts with the grip. I mean, that's what's holding on to the club. And, once you have any of these fundamentals, but particularly the grip, not in its proper place, a myriad of things can happen. Another thing, too, I want to move on to on the fourth essential skill is the understanding of the swing plane as well. Keeping the club in the same plane throughout the swing is definitely going to help straighten out your golf shots. This is another thing, too, is people don't really understand this. They hear plane. They don't really think about it. They don't really understand that. Talk a little bit about that as well.
Well, I will tell you that I don't teach a swing plane. I teach a swing path. That was the way I was taught at Grand Cypress. The only plane that I look at in golf is the target line because a plane is a straight line. Okay, the golf swing is not a straight line. So you can look at it on video and people can say, oh, I'm going to draw a line here and see how, the old adage of Ben Hogan and all those guys, they would has the vision of a plane. But there's a lot of planes in the golf swing. There's a takeaway plane, the club going up, the top of the swing, the downswing. That club is not swinging on an exact plane. And you have to remember that what you're seeing on a two-dimensional television screen or a monitor or however you're looking at your video is not the perspective that you're going to have when you look down at that golf ball. When you're looking down at that golf ball, you're not swinging on a straight line. You're swinging around your body. So that's why I try to get students not to think about a swing plane, but to think about a swing path. And the swing path changes with every single club. A driver's swing path is totally different than a putter swing path. The putter swing path barely goes to the inside, back to the ball, and back to the inside. So it's a very small arc. The driver is a very large arc. The longer and the larger the arc, the more power you create. The longer and the larger the arc, the less control you have. So I can hit my driver much farther than I can hit my putter, but I can hit my putter much straighter than my driver. And then the other clubs fall into that. If you start thinking about the golf swing as more of an arc, and you start learning to turn back around your right hip and you turn through around your left hip, that arc is like a swinging door back and through. And so you start learning that versus thinking about a straight line of a swing plane. And I think that you're going to do a lot better as far as playing golf. Now, if you're going to talk to teaching pros, and you can go to, we could bring in the top 100 teachers in the country and have them all sit in a room and discuss this. You are going to get teachers who talk about planes. But I think that they're doing their students a disservice, because when the student is hitting the ball, they're looking down at that golf ball, they're not going to see a straight line. There's no part of that. When I look down at that golf ball, I don't think about a straight line. There's no way I'm swinging the club around my body. So I think it makes sense in the teaching circles in describing things, but I think it does a disservice to the student who's trying to replicate those planes when they're swinging the club, when in reality they're swinging on an arc.
Yeah, and I think you're well said. And I think, John, what it ultimately ends up doing, and again, it's well intended, but again, sometimes the information that we learn as instructors is something for us to better understand certain things, but how we describe it to the students can either do one of two things: can help clarify issues like what we talked about earlier with club face control, or can add to the confusion. I think this is one of those areas. I agree with you. I think, and again, I understand what they're trying to get across, and I understand about the swing plane as well, but I think that it's not something that necessarily has to get into a great discussion about with a student. And, you might get a student that might ask you something, but I think it causes them to really not understand what's actually happening in the golf swing. And so we have to be mindful of that and careful when we're talking about that. Certainly as a point of reference, it's okay. But I think if you get too much on no pun intended, on plane discussion, then I think it can sometimes add to the confusion. Another area that we want to make sure of is pivot. So as an example, in the backswing, you're really trying to get behind the ball on your backswing, and it really affects obviously all of your body, but primarily the upper body. Your lower body tends to remain a little bit quiet. There's obviously a turn, but not as much as your upper body. On the downswing, the opposite happens. You're engaging your legs, hips, and that sort of thing to create a better impact and finish position, obviously. But again, there's a misunderstanding with the phrase pivot, because as you pointed out earlier, years ago, we used to see more of a slide into the downswing because of the way the game was played at that particular time, and lots changed. So touch on pivot. What is it that people are not understanding? Maybe you can go, I know we don't have the visual here, so it's a little bit difficult to really demonstrate, but maybe you can talk about pivot as well, because there is an actual pivot that happens from the backswing to the downswing.
Absolutely. The pivot is, I teach basically two types of pivot swings. One is the one pivot swing, which would be for the short game, and the two pivot swing, which would be for the full swing. And so what I mean by that is I'm talking about pivot around the hip. So your hips are ball and socket joints. So they're designed to pivot. It's very much like if you look back at back in the 50s and the 60s, and you would look at the field goal kickers in football, they would all kick straight on. They were all straight line kickers, and they really didn't kick the ball that far. They would kick it pretty straight, but it really didn't go that far. And then soccer started coming into the United States, and then all of a sudden the football players, or the kickers, were kicking soccer style. They were pivoting around. If they're kicking with their right leg, they would pivot around their left leg and form like an arc, and it very much the same arc as a golf swing. Well, all of a sudden their distances improved, and they were kicking the ball farther and farther and farther. The same thing is to be said about the golf swing. Yes, the equipment is better. There's no doubt in my mind the equipment is better now than it was years ago. Yes, the ball is better, but also the players are in better shape, and the players are using their body in that rotary motion by using their ball and socket joint, their hips, to turn back and turn through. Now, in a one pivot swing in the short game, you're going to set up and you're going to put all your weight in. If you're going to hit like a little chip shot, all your weight is going to be in that front leg. So you're just pivoting around your front leg. You're going to hit a solid shot. You're not going to hit it very far, but you'll be able to control it. In the two pivot swing, you're setting up with your weight more 50-50. You're not putting all the weight in one side or the other. You swing back, you load into your right side very early. The club goes back. As the club goes back, you transition into the left side, and then you pivot around the left side. So that's a sequence that is a very difficult sequence to learn. Some students have it naturally. I get students who've never played golf before, and they come to me and they say, hey, I played baseball when I was a kid or whatever, and they swing the club, and I go, wow, you have a really nice transition. So that's great. Some students don't have it naturally. And those that don't have it naturally, I have drills that I teach them. A lot of them are on my website as well. And I try to get them to learn how to use both their right hip and their left hip to be able to get that pivot and to be able to get that transition so that they can create power. So a one pivot swing, two pivot swing is all based on where your weight is and still using your hips and that lower body to swing the club.
Yeah, well said, and a great explanation. All right, I see now we've got Sue joining us. She's been able to join us now. So, John, I'm going to give you just a little bit of a break. So if you want to get yourself, hey, Sue, how are you? Welcome.
Good. Thank you.
Good. And I'd already introduced you at the beginning anyways, just in case. So, but thank you for coming in and joining us again. So, John, take just a minute or two if you want to just mute and get yourself something to drink, and I'm going to get Sue to jump in the conversation. So, Sue, let me just bring you up real quick to speed what we've been talking about. Tonight's discussion on the panel has been really some of the essential skills of golf. We've talked about some of the pre-swing fundamentals like the grip and aim and posture and so forth. We talked about club face control, the importance of being accurate and so forth. And also wanting to strike as opposed to scooping the golf ball like many do with that. We touched on swing plane, or as John put it, more of the swing arc, if you will, and then he just finished up with pivot. So I'm going to get you on this one here. We've just got a few more, but I'm going to get you to sort of help wrap things up a little bit with this part of the discussion. And that is really effortless power, not powerless effort. So really what we're trying to do here is to create sort of a powerful club head speed. And to do that, we want the club head needs to swing faster than the club end or the handle, much like a pendulum. So many people sort of want to yank and kill the ball, which obviously makes the handle go faster than the club head. So first off, what's happening here that's causing them to lose power and do that? So again, we want the feel the weight of the club head. We're swinging the club head because that's what's hitting the ball. But a lot of people end up swinging the handle with such ferocity, I guess is the best way to do it, that they're actually, it's essentially throwing them out of sequence. So we want to get more power. Everybody wants to get more distance. So maybe talk a little bit, two things here. What are most people doing wrong that's causing them to create that problem, that scenario where they're swinging the club handle faster than the club head? And what can they do? Are there some drills or things that they can do to make sure that they're sequencing properly and getting that good power?
Yeah, I think the biggest issue that I see with a lot of players is they don't have disassociation between their upper body and their lower body. And when you have disassociation with your upper body and your lower body, you generate the power and the speed from the ground up through the body. And what I mean by disassociation is, in the backswing, you turn your shoulders, and on the downswing, you turn your hips. But a lot of people don't have that ability. So what I have a 5-minute stretching video that I send to all my players who is on the ground, and they take a yoga strap. If they're not too flexible, that's the first thing I ask them. I said, do you have a yoga strap? And they're like, yes or no. And I said, the first thing we do is we isolate the shoulders laying on the ground, and we move the lower body. And what I mean by that is we would bring both our knees up to our chest, and then and then drop the knees to the right side, drop the knees to the left side. That would be one of them. The other one is I teach them how to cross their legs and again stabilize the upper body and move the lower body, because that creates disassociation. So there's just a lot of people that don't have what we call disassociation between the upper body and the lower body, so they can't generate any speed. And then what happens is when they go to the driving range or whatever that may be, then they're trying to actually swing harder with the body and swing harder with the handle rather than, at the end of the club, because we want that disassociation to create that speed. And if you look on, the LPGA or the PGA players, you'll see them at impact. What's at impact? If you froze one of the best players in the world's impact, looking at them, their hips are already gone through the ball, and their shoulders and their sternum are behind the ball, and that's what we mean by disassociation. So, and that's how you generate speed. But most people don't. Number one, they don't stretch properly, and then they just think that they're supposed to be able to create stuff like from using your hands or the handle of the club. And so that's what I teach. I teach a lot of golf stretching for disassociation between the upper body and the lower body, because that's how you create the speed.
Yeah, and great points. And just to add to that a little bit, and what I often see too, especially with some of our older players, and it's understandable we don't have as much, unfortunately as we get older, we don't have as much flexibility as we did when, we were in our 20s, and that's why it's important to do some of these different stretching exercises. But I also see sometimes too, when I'm looking down the range, and I will see players who literally almost lock their lower body because they've been told, well, if you want to create torque, you want to kind of keep that lower body quiet. So they're almost locking their lower body and then trying to just turn with their upper body. And, you get all kinds of problems there. You're casting the club and so forth. So you want it really to feel effortless. It's a swing. You're swinging the golf ball, the golf club, excuse me, into the golf ball, and the ball's essentially getting into place. So when you've got a player like that, is it typically a combination of things potentially? Is it one, maybe a lack of flexibility? And you've already sort of addressed what we can do with that. But what about if you've got a player that has maybe physical injuries that prevents them? Is there some ways that they can still benefit if they're not able to naturally get that sort of action, the disassociation from the upper and lower body? Are there things that they can do, maybe positioning their feet differently, so that they can get more of a turn, which will help to engage? Give us an idea of what can maybe some of the older players that have lost that flexibility do through no fault of their own. Are there other, and I don't want to say tricks, but things that they can do to help alleviate some of that?
Yeah, like in your stance, in order to help you with your hip turn, if you're right-handed, your left foot is forward. And what I tell everybody that doesn't have a lot of flexibility is toe out your left foot so that you can rotate your hips through. Because a lot of people think that they have to keep their feet, square to the ball. And actually, when you, toe out your left foot, you can actually rotate your hips a lot better. That's one of the things. Or if you're left-handed, it would be your right foot. But if you toe the target side foot out, then you have much more ability to turn your hips through, and that's one of the things. And because I see too many people trying to stand the toes facing the ball, can't generate any speed because they can't turn through because they're so locked up, with their toes looking straight at the ball. So
right.
I just tell all my players, it's like it's okay to toe out your target side foot because you can generate your hip turn a lot easier because it flows. And I think with with seniors, that's one of the biggest issues. They just don't have the mobility to create that. But if you set up differently, you'll have a little bit more motion forward toward the target with your hips turning through, because when you toe out that target side foot, you have a much better chance of turning your hips through. So that's what I tell a lot of my players. Yeah.
And I think even with their back foot, certainly not as much because you want to guard against swaying. But I think even in the back swing, again, if they don't have a lot of flexibility, that back foot could also be toed out a little bit, not as much as the front foot, but a little bit, again, to allow, again, transitioning into the back swing to allow a little bit more mobility with the hips and that as well. And that's a good thing as long as they don't overdo it, right?
Yeah, and, I tell people you can go anywhere from 15 to 20 degrees, and that's about as far as you want to go. You don't want to go 45 degrees because that's too far. But like between 15 to 30 degrees is absolutely fine for both feet. Yeah,
I for one, I like to do a little bit more. I play right-handed, so I like the front foot. I certainly don't have the same flexibility I once did. I'm not too bad, but it all happens to all of us. But I like that front foot or the target foot to be a little bit more open for me, anyways. And I think what I would recommend for people to do, and this is a great exercise to do, is certainly do some of the stretching, as you suggested. But I think for a lot of players is when you're on the practice area is to practice and experiment. Find what works for you, because what might work for me doesn't necessarily work for you. So, flare those toes out a little bit, or the feet out rather, and experiment. See how much before, and if it starts to get to a point where it affects the actual turn of the golf swing to the point where you're starting to sway or slide too much, and you're not pivoting any longer, then obviously you've gone too far. So you can ratchet it back a little bit. But yeah, that's a good good rule of thumb, and I think it's a good idea. I'm going to give you the last one as well, again, giving John a little bit of a break, and that is the width in your golf swing. This is something that we see a lot too, and what I mean by that, I'm going to explain very briefly, and then I'll let you expand a little bit more, is what I mean by width is, you've heard professionals in the teaching side of things saying you want to keep the same distance between your hands at your body when you're at the top of the swing as that you have been with your arms and that, or hands rather, in the sternum at your setup. And what that means is what often happens is when a lot of golfers swing back, again, partially because of a lack of flexibility and strength in their upper body, and I don't mean muscle strength, but flexibility strength, is their arms collapse because they can't turn enough. So their arms, in order to feel comfortable, start to contract into their closer to the body. So talk about that. How do we help keep that width? I think there's a few different things that we could do here. Give us some examples of what can be done and what we should do to try and help to maintain that width.
Yeah, the first thing is I tell people is like put a ball between your both of your arms and make a turn and don't let that ball fall out. Because what happens is as soon as they put the ball between their forearms and then they turn, and then all of a sudden your arms start to shrink up, that ball is going to fall out of the arms. So that's one drill I use because it keeps their arms extended. And then I try to teach them in regards to just adding a little bit of shoulder flexibility. And what I mean by that is taking a club, against your chest and making a turn and seeing how far they can actually turn first. Do a little bit of evaluation first, and then teach them, okay, if that's all the farther I can turn, still keep your arms, keep your arms extended. Don't let those arms come toward your chest, because then you know that, that's where you lose power. And what happens with that is if your arms fold in, then your arms are going to fold out on a downswing, and that's where everybody loses their power. You have a difficult time explaining to people, saying, okay, well, don't bend that left arm, or don't bend your right arm, depending if you're right-handed or left-handed. But I think that's one of the biggest issues is people just don't understand that you have to keep the length the same as you do at a dress. And some people can do it and some people can't do it. And I think the people that can't do it, they don't have the shoulder flexibility or the rotation of the shoulders, and that's why they bring their arms in, because that's as far as they can go in regards to them making their shoulder turn. And I think it's just, again, flexibility and understanding where your body can and cannot do in those terms.
Yeah, and I think, well said. I think also, too, what we find, and again, I'm really speaking about some of our more senior golfers, and that is, again, because of a lack of flexibility, they're trying to, in order to get that extra power, they're trying to overturn, and ultimately because they don't have the flexibility, it's forcing their arms to come in closer to their body, or especially their chest. So I think another good suggestion is, certainly work on the flexibility, try to maintain that, but maybe shorten the backswing a little bit. Don't try to get that that John Daly swing if you're 85 years old. Maybe shorten that backswing, and I guess, again, experiment, right, until you to a point where your arms are not collapsing anymore. Right. And again, try to set yourself a goal to maybe increase it a little bit, but be realistic. And I think it boils down to being realistic with your physical abilities, given your age and so forth. Again, because we do lose certain flexibility, and you can do a lot of drills and a lot of things, but it's just a natural, way of things happening as we age. We do lose certain elasticity in our body. So I think you have to be mindful of that. So there's good adjustments that you can make, some of the things that you talked about. So I think that's right. Just maybe shorten the backswing a little bit, right?
Yeah, because, it just, the other thing is, get fitted with a little bit more. If people are losing the flexibility in their body, go get fitted and try a little bit softer shaft, because if you don't generate as much speed and you have too much of a stiff shaft, then the ball's not going to go up in the air. It's just going to, what I want to say, fly a little straighter, but it won't go higher. And as you know, the better trajectory you have, the farther the ball will go. Yeah, and we see that so often. And, I think for men particularly, it becomes an ego thing as they get older. They say, wow, I've been playing this shaft for years. Now some of them are starting to wisen up and saying, you know what, I'm going to go to a little more flexible shaft. And that's why I think it's important to have those annual assessments. I'm going to bring John back in here as we get ready to wrap up here. John, I'm assuming you're still with us?
Yes, I am, Ted.
Okay, good. I just wanted to get some final thoughts from both of you, and John, I'll pass the baton, as it were, over to you. But I guess really to summarize some of the things that we've talked about here is, I don't think you have to necessarily work at all of these at one time. I think over the course of your season, obviously you want to work on the first one. I think the fundamentals, that's the key to get those really, working well. But I think that the others with each time you go to the range, certainly always working on those fundamentals, but then maybe work on some of these other areas that we've talked about a little bit as well throughout the process, so that over the course of the season, you're going to become a much better and well-rounded player. So I want to get your final thoughts, John, and then Sue, on what we've been talking about tonight, some of the things. And Sue, because I know you came in a little bit later, if you need me to repeat anything as far as some of the things that we talked about, I'm happy to do that. But John, go ahead and give your final thoughts on what we've talked about tonight.
Well, Ted, the main thing that I would try to encourage all the listeners out there to do is I would encourage you to have a beginning of the year assessment with a PGA golf professional and taking in the form of a lesson, I think it's good. If you're going to take lessons, take the lessons now. Don't wait until the week before the member guest to take your lesson. You need to do it now. If you'll put in the time now, between now and say, middle of May to do some instruction, or maybe the end of May to do your instruction, and then from there just go play. Because most of the United States is just now kind of getting into the golf season. Now, if you've been down in Florida or some of the other places, you might have been playing year-round. But for those that are just getting started, and when you go get the assessment, really ask the pro to really take a look at your setup, and just focus on that first. If your setup is good, if your pro gives you the thumbs up and the setup's good, then you can start getting into the swing. But don't feel like that you need to go out and do a lot of complicated stuff in the lesson starting out. Try to make sure to get the setups first. And I think if you do that, then your golf swing will kind of fall into place. So that would be my advice for the listeners out there who are getting their season started, maybe don't have an idea of really a plan of attack of what to do. Put it in the hands of your golf professional, your local pro there, and I think that would help a lot. We also, there's online and stuff. That's something that I can do if you're interested in online instruction. I can do that as well, and I can send you a video and let you know, if your setup's right and the things that you need to do from there.
Yeah, well said. And Sue, I think some of the other things, John has sort of encapsulated a lot of the things physically to work on the game, and I agree with him, as I'm sure you would, that a good beginning of the season assessment. I think it's good to be assessed throughout the season, but particularly at the beginning of the season. But I think there's some other things too. From the physical standpoint, as you were touching on earlier, making sure, and when I say in physical shape, I'm not saying you have to be a weightlifter or something, but you need to do some things both from a physical standpoint and as well nutritionally to make sure you've got the good energy and stuff. Maybe you can touch on that area a little bit as well, because that's an area that a lot of people miss.
Yeah, and I think the nutrition, is a big part of it because, people, most golfers, I won't say most golfers, but a lot of golfers think that, I don't need to supplement my nutrition. But golf is an endurance sport. You're playing 18 holes and you're playing for 4 hours. So you'll see, if you watch the PGA or the LPGA, they're snacking as they play, and you have power drink or a protein bar or something like that. So I think nutritionally you have to be very aware of when you're playing golf, because you're playing out for 4 hours, and your body needs you need protein, you need fluids, and I think that's one of the things that a lot of basic golfers don't really understand, that nutritionally it's very important to keep your body as healthy and energetically, because when you're playing, you're burning energy and you're burning calories, and if you don't fulfill some of that back in, you're going to lose energy. And when you lose energy, what do you think you lose? You lose distance. And that's one of the things. And I think I think there's just the other part of it is the big flexibility. Most people just don't work on flexibility enough. And if they did, then you'd have a better what I call disassociation between your upper body and your lower body, because and that's how you generate more power. But a lot of people, they think, well, if I just go to the range and bang balls, I'll hit it farther. Well, the body will tell you yes or no, on certain things. And I think that's one of the biggest issues, is that people just need to be educated about, well, okay, how do I create that disassociation, or how do I create that flexibility? And there's a lot of, like I said, YouTube videos, and I'm a big fan of yoga, because yoga creates stability with the lower body and flexibility with the upper body. So, and you had Catherine Roberts, I think this week, right? And she's a big yoga for golfer person. I mean, she's the one that created yoga for golf, and I've been through her programs, and it's awesome. So.
Yeah, she actually was. It was actually last week that she was on. But you're exactly right, and she also, in addition to doing the yoga for golfers, also does a lot of the same techniques in that she's been working with Chicago Cubs now for 10 years and has worked with other Major League Baseball teams as well. So, if these guys are getting into this stuff, that there's something to it, and they're obviously doing. And I think the bottom line is we get people coming to us all the time saying, how can I get more distance? How can I be more consistent? And they're looking for guys, they're looking for that sort of Band-Aid. Give me a tip or a drill, and certainly the drills will help in certain areas. But I think the assessments, and I think also too, in addition to assessment on the golf swing and some of the basic fundamentals that we want to see, I think it's also good for them to get a fitness assessment. And there's a lot of many of the pros either themselves or are connected with a certified golf fitness professional, because there is a difference. Right. You want somebody that specializes in the golf swing, is to get assessed by them as well to make sure. To make sure that you are not losing distance or power or consistency because you're out of shape. And then they will give you things that will help you to get back some of that flexibility, and they'll also guide you again with certain things to be able to nutritionally eat a little bit better. Because again, as you pointed out, you're out there for 4.5 hours, depending on where you're playing, and I don't care who you are, your body naturally needs fuel to run. And after a few hours, you start to burn through a lot of that. And if you're not replenishing it, by the time you get a little past the turn, everybody's on their last leg, and the last 5 holes or whatever are just, gone downhill. So, I think there's some great points. Yeah, I think there's some great points by both, and appreciate it. So I'm going to give you guys a minute or so to let finish our discussion. So I'm going to go again in the order. John, if you want to let the folks know the best way they can reach out, and I know you might want to mention your upcoming as you get ready to do your second book if you want, or anything else that you want to plug. And then Sue, I'll let you go.
Well, first of all, Ted, and I want to thank you for having us on the show, and Sue, I enjoyed being on with you as well. For the listeners out there, if you want to get in touch with me, the best way to do it is to go on my website. It's deckergolf.com. I'm also available you can reach out to me on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. I have all kind of golf videos and stuff on there as well. I'm, like you said earlier, a senior editor with Golf Tips Magazine, so each issue I have articles, instructional articles, but also a faith-based article called Fairways to Heaven, and do instructional videos for Golf Tips Magazine as well. So those videos are located on the Golf Tips Magazine website. My book, Golf is My Life, Glorifying God Through the Game, is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart.com. You can go online and order the book. I also now have an audio book with it as well, so you can get that on Amazon Audible. I do public speaking engagements, so if you're looking for someone to come speak at, say, a golf outing or a church outing or something along those lines, feel free to reach out to me as well. Would love to do that. And again, you can go to my website to reach out to me if that's what you're interested in. And, yes, I do have a second book. I'm really excited. It's going to be coming out sometime in 2024. Do not know exactly when yet, and as we get closer to that date, I'll certainly let you know, Ted, to get the word out. But I'm really excited about that and look forward to making an official announcement soon.
Perfect. Thank you. And Sue, go ahead. The best way that folks can reach out, and if there's anything that you'd like to plug before we wrap up.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks. I'm sorry I was a little late. And, I have a international #1 best-selling book. It's called Golf the Last 6 Inches. It has to do with the mental side of it. That's on Amazon as well. Or you can either text me or email me at swieger@gmail.com. I just appreciate everybody listening, and If you have any questions, my phone number is 480-392-6563.
All right. Well, guys, thank you very much for, as always, joining me on the Coach's Corner panel. I appreciate your input into tonight's discussion, and I look forward to having you guys join me again the next time you're on the panel. So have a great weekend, both of you, and again, I appreciate all that you do here on the Coach's Corner panel. Have a great weekend, guys.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you, Ted.
All right. That was John Decker and Sue Weir joining me on the Coach's Corner panel. When we come back from a brief message, I'll be joined by tonight's special guest, the president of the Golf Heritage Society, Dr. Bernacki. We'll be right back.
The following ad is sponsored by Golf Tips Magazine.
Are you tired of being short off the tee? And what about those 3 putts? Forget about it. It's time you got serious about your game. Golf Tips, the most in-depth magazine in the industry. For over 30 years, Golf Tips has delivered expert content such as the latest golf instruction from America's top pros, simple-to-follow practice and game improvement drills, fitness and mental game tips, equipment, training aids, accessory and apparel reviews, golf destinations and travel tips for every budget, and so much more. Don't miss a single issue. Go to golftipsmag.com and subscribe today.
All right, welcome back, and I'm super excited to have tonight's guest. He's been on a number of times, actually, over the last several years, and always enjoy having him each season. I feel like I learn something new every time he comes on. So let me just tell you a little bit about him, and then we'll get him on the show. My special guest this evening is Dr. Bernacki, and he is, as I mentioned, the president of the Golf Heritage Society. He's also a community-based, self-employed family physician for over 35 years, who happens to just love this great game of golf. And he's actually plays the game in a variety of ways, including with hickory sticks, steel, and modern-era shafts, and, of course, always with a period-appropriate golf ball. He's also been active in youth development and drug prevention activities. And he recently had been involved and completed a leadership role with the First Tee of Pittsburgh. Please welcome back to the show my very special guest, Dr. Bernacki. Welcome.
Hello, Ted. Thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for coming back and spending some time with me. Before we start, let me just say we actually got to, which is very common in this type of format. We don't always get to meet some of the folks that have on the show. And you and I actually met face-to-face a little earlier this year at the PGA show in Orlando. So we got to meet for the first time and have a conversation. So I appreciate that. It was a lot of fun and learned some interesting things along the way. So first off, maybe you could just touch on a little bit about the Golf Heritage Society so that people understand what it is and sort of how it came about.
Sure. Well, Ted, we love to get together and have fun talking about all aspects of the game of golf. Our formal mission statement, we seek to promote appreciation for the history and the traditions of golf. We foster friendship among all of our golf enthusiasts, and we are worldwide, mostly U.S., but we have friends all over the world, including golfers, of course, writers, historians, and collectors. That's our core of our group as collectors of the game's artifacts and memorabilia. That was our beginning, and we still maintain that core culture.
Yeah, and what was interesting about it, and I'm going to talk about the membership specifically. We're going to get into some of that as well. But you raised a great point in explaining that it's not just about remembering the game as it was once played, but the Golf Heritage Society is also an organization that brings collectors and even artists together and allows them not only to showcase some of the collectibles and obviously artwork through a variety of different mediums, but gets them an opportunity to, through this membership, to get acquainted and network and meet and that sort of thing through a variety of different events. And we'll talk about some of those a little bit. But so it's really not just about remembering the heritage of the game, but actually sharing some of the memorabilia and so forth throughout the membership, correct?
Oh, yeah. When we get together and play a game of golf, we could be playing like today. I just came off the course in Pittsburgh. It was a gorgeous day at Edgewood Country Club. We're celebrating our 125th anniversary. We're very excited about that. But I chose to play modern golf with some guys, and we talked all about the modern era and the young players and the number one and all those kinds of things. But when we get together, sometimes we'll dress in period and play hickory golf, both, Bobby Jones hickory golf and the 20s and 30s era, and dress in appropriate period dress and appropriate golf ball. And, sometimes we'll play pre-1900 golf. And we've played pre-1900 golf with a gutty ball, solid ball. It's a heavier club. Those are blacksmith-made one-at-a-time clubs. And that was before mass manufacturing. It's a different game. It's fun like crazy. And, there's no knickers in that. There's no golf bags in that. Wearing your clubs under your arm. So, yeah, all these things are great fun when we get together for play.
And you've shared – go ahead. Sorry, finish your thought.
Well, when we get together in a trade show, we come together sometimes associated with an outing, but people will set up some tables and bring some collectibles, and it's great fun to swap and sell and purchase things that might be something you're interested in. And that could range from equipment, balls, clubs, bags, tees, you name it, to also ephemera, ceramics, artwork, all these kinds of things that certain folks are more or less dedicated to and know a whole lot about. So when they're talking, they can really bring the history of an artifact to life, and therefore bring the history of the game to life. It's great fun to just sometimes sit and listen to two people conversing about even a piece of art or a sculpture or that sort of thing. It's really, really entertaining and informative and educational for us.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, a lot of people don't really understand the sort of earlier beginnings of the game. And, this is something that you guys talk about a lot, not just the more modern game, as you mentioned today, but you also look back at some of the earlier times, whether it be Bobby Jones or even earlier times, about how the game was played and how different it was. There's a lot involved in the membership of and I'm going to call it the GHS for short. But I, as you know, you extended an invitation to join the Golf Heritage Society when we were at the show, and I've done that, and very excited. So I thought what we would do is sort of give a little bit of a breakdown about the membership and some of the, I guess, what that entails, and can anybody join?
Oh, absolutely. That's a great idea, Ted. Well, first of all, welcome as a member of the Golf Heritage Society. We are the best deal, best value in the game of golf for $50 yearly membership. Our member benefits are becoming stronger and stronger. So I like to say that the greatest asset is the knowledge base and possessions of the society. These folks have possessions, antiques, and very interesting pieces, and they can tell you all about them. So the variety of people in the society and all these backgrounds that I mentioned earlier is one thing, and that's terrific. So we really enjoy the depth of knowledge base in a lot of areas around the game of golf. You talk about events. Boy, there are people who are Ryder Cup aficionados with collectibles. We just finished a Zoom call, so I'll talk about that as a member benefit. We get, probably 4 to 6 times a year, a golf notable to do a Zoom call with us, and it's live for our members. And we have a host who sets up with that guest a number of questions, and they tell us a little bit about a topic, and then we start asking questions, and it's usually open to the members to also send in questions to the host, and we just have a great time. We have had so many unique individuals, Bobby Jones IV, authors of famous golf books, and Linda Hartow, the famous golf artist, and Shirley Spork. A lot of your audience doesn't know about Shirley. She passed away about 6 months ago. She was one of the founders of the LPGA, and she was one of the best, amazing interviews ever, because she taught us about golf history as well as American history, playing golf in the 30s and 40s and traveling and all these kinds of things. So our Zoom, we call it the Grand Zoom Series. That's a member benefit that I think is knock your socks off. And guess what? We keep them, we archive them on our website, which is golfheritage.org, and our members can go back and listen to all those and enjoy all of those. So I can keep going if I may. Our journal, golf. Yeah, that is a absolute gem. I was just looking over the latest issue, and we routinely have a golf artist give one of their favorites and put it on our front page. And boy, we've highlighted a lot of artists that way. And our contents are both modern comments on the modern game, and we go back and talk about collectibles, the auction, the world of auctions, and what's hot and why and who paid what, and the members have a lot of knowledge about collectibles, and part of the value of being a member is being connected to people that have this knowledge base. So it's kind of cool. If you're interested in getting involved in one aspect of collecting or making a significant purchase of a golf thing, having somebody to advise you or interact with is a very nice benefit to have. So, the journal connects us, the website connects us. Our journal is 52 years old, and we've archived all of them. So that's really a wonderful benefit for people who want to do research. People can go online and do a lot of research, but when you have writers dedicated to, say, the Ryder Cup, and you're writing about or researching the Ryder Cup history, by the way, this is a Ryder Cup year, it'll be great fun for members to go and look up and research players from all those years back. It'll be great fun. So,
and there's so much. Yeah, and there's so much information, and I'm excited, and thank you. I'm glad to be a part of the Golf Heritage Society as a member, and I'm looking forward to partaking in many of the resources available. I want to also give you an opportunity just to talk about a few. We're going to talk about, obviously, the annual GHS National Convention that's coming up a little bit later this year. I'll give you a chance to talk a bit about that. But first, I want to talk about some of the GHS-sponsored events, some of the golf challenges and so forth that are throughout the year. Obviously, your National Hickory Championship, that sort of thing. Some of the events coming up, when they're taking place, if you just want to sort of expand a bit on some of those.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. And, we're pretty excited. In May, we'll be on a Donald Ross gem up in Erie, Pennsylvania, called Kakwa. And it's a wonderful golf course. I was up there a couple years ago, and one of Arnold Palmer's closest friends is a member there and is hosting us, Jim Rutkowski. And I have a very, when I visited there about a year ago, I just have a fond memory of spending some time with Jim Rutkowski Sr. We call him Senior and Junior. His son, Senior, is close to 90, and he is a Arnold Palmer collection as part of his business office in Erie. That is a very special invitation. So the members that are signed up to play golf at Kakwa will have lunch there at the club. It's a old Donald Ross golf course. It's beautiful. It plays well. I think some of the folks will play modern. Some of the folks will play hickory. And some of the folks may choose to play classic golf clubs with steel shafts and persimmons, just in the era of Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, and Gary Player, because this golf course has seen it all. So they'll have a real nice opportunity when they go up to Erie. So there are other regional gatherings, and I don't have a listing, but we try to get our regional directors to put up a gatherings list and communicate that within the region and nationally in case you're traveling and happen to be our board members, Taba Dale. She will be in Arizona representing us at the T, commemorating Marilyn Smith's LPGA career and as a fundraiser. So, we try to participate and encourage support of the history and traditions of the game. I will play in August. I have 2 events in August. I will be in Foxburg for a Gutty Championship, the National Hickory Championship. That's a pre-1900 event. That'll be at the very famous 1887 oldest golf course in America, continuing play, Foxburg. That's a must if you get a chance to be in northwest Pennsylvania. You get up there and visit Foxburg and see the wonderful museum of artifacts. It's several rooms of wonderful collectibles there. And I'll be visiting with the African American Golf Exposition and Forum. That'll be in Louisville in late August. And they have an event as well. So I think I'll play probably classic clubs on that golf course. So, there's so many things that we do with our own sponsored events and supporting other organizations who are advancing the history and traditions of the game as well.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to give you a few minutes to talk about that is because there are so many great, it's not just the GHS sponsored events, but you're also giving a voice to other events as well, again, that are sort of respecting and continuing to expand on the history of the game. And I think that's great for the organization to do that. And there's many other things listed. I'm looking actually on your events page. That's why I brought a few of them up. As you mentioned, the National Hickory Championships coming up in a few months, and others along the way. And you got in September the U.S. Hickory Open, which is going to be in Inwood, New York, at the Inwood Country Club, September 10th and 12th. So you've got a lot of great events. Many others I haven't mentioned because we don't have enough time to do them all. But I wanted to give you a chance just to mention a few of them. But sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just so many opportunities. Yeah, I bet it doesn't show up there, but there's sort of a smaller one. We're co-hosting with some guys up in New England, in New Hampshire. So all of you who are listening up in New England or have friends there, have them give us a call and hook up for that. We'll be at Lake Sunapee, and across the road from the entrance there, the farm of the Squire, Gene Sarazen. So there's a very heavy representation of collectibles representing Gene Sarazen in his era, and I can't wait to get back up there in July.
Yeah, it's as I said, there's so many great things going on. I mean, there's literally thousands of things going on in the golf industry every year, and it's hard to really keep track of everything. But you guys do a great job in presenting many of the things that you do. on your website and that, and talk about, as I said, not just the history of the game, but provide an opportunity for people, both that are collectors and those that are maybe interested in collecting. And you provide a lot of great resources in that as well as again, sort of summarizing some of the events. One of the events that I want to talk to you about is, as I sort of teased earlier, is the National Convention, which takes place in October 11th to 14th, and that's being held at the Embassy Suites Hotel in Lexington, Kentucky. Tell us about what goes on there for people that are not familiar with it. You have a national convention that goes on. So it's a few days. What goes on at the convention?
Well, this is I'm going to title this piece of this segment "The Anatomy of a Convention." For us, as I said, the fellowship is so important, and we have people who are old friends, have played golf together, they've collected, that have advised, they've mentored the younger members. So just being together and seeing each other and welcoming new people and helping them along in their interests, whether it's play with period equipment or starting to acquire equipment, or just start to appreciate so many collectibles that are fun and stimulating, just getting together. So we do this thing. We have a hotel, and we always make sure that they're okay with this. And when you set up in your room, you bring a lot of stuff with you, a lot of collectibles, because 2 days later, 3 days later, we have a giant trade show, probably one of the biggest collections of golfables annually in the world. And we put all those things out at our trade show day. But before we do that, everybody has those things in their rooms, and there's a list of rooms, who's where, so you can find people you want to see. You can go from room to room and see amazing collectibles and just learn from the member in the room, introducing yourself and, getting to know what they collect or what they're expert in. And it's so much fun to do that. And that goes on for the whole time, the whole time that we're there. And, of course, we have a formal program, and we will highlight golf in Kentucky. And I don't know if many of your audience know this, but there are two notables that we're going to highlight. A woman named Beverly Bell wrote a book, The Murder of Marion Miley. And Marion Miley was an amateur, then turned golf professional, and she was an up-and-coming star. And there was just a tragedy that she and her mother were at a golf course and suffered a very crazy, untimely death. The book is about that, and we will tell that story and get more into detail. I don't know if your members know that Gabe Brewer, a PGA professional in the old Palmer era, he was a Lexington native. And, of course, he won a Masters, and it was in 1967, if I'm correct. And we will have a lot of Masters collectibles there, and Gabe Brewer Masters collectibles. And his caddy, a fellow named Bob Boring, B-O-R-I-N-G, Bob contacted us and said, I'd like to be there and participate. And he impressed us so much with his knowledge of Gabe Brewer's career. We asked him to be our keynote speaker. So Bob's going to be there in a capacity, both sharing some of his collectibles, selling some of his collectibles that have Gabe Brewer and Masters attractiveness. So that'll be great fun. And our program will also highlight, we choose a topic every year. And our topic this year will be the history and evolution of the driver. And I'm guessing we're going to go from long nose right through titanium and incredible components of the shaft and the club head. So it'll be amazing.
And that's a long history too, for sure. that'd be definitely a very interesting and certainly lengthy discussion there. You know, it's interesting because, and I want to get you just to touch on this. And you're welcome to share, you know, a story or two about this. But I remember the first time that you came on, and you're welcome to share that one or a different one if you want. But you talked about sort of having a discussion with a group of youngsters, and I don't recall off the top of my head if it was with some of the ones through the First Tee program or not, but you know, sort of explaining to them a little bit and introducing them to the history of the game and some of the earlier equipment. And you know, certainly a number of folks, young folks that attended that particular get together were kind of awestruck, really, of not really understanding and I imagine you get that a lot because it is. I mean, you know, and by today's standards, you look at the kids today, you know, you dial things back 50 years. They didn't see a lot of this stuff even outside of the golf industry. So if you want to share a story or two, I think that's very interesting, that just to put things in perspective, how obviously we know how things have changed, but give us some of the feedback on when you're introducing some of these things and in discussion, especially with some of the younger folks. What has been some of the response?
Yeah, Ted, I remember the conversation when we were together in Orlando. We were talking about the Golf Heritage Society coming together with First Tee of Pittsburgh, and you know, I really love to do things that give young people positive opportunities, and you know, golf is a fabulous game for that. The history of the game is another aspect. You know, when the weather's bad and when you just have time to appreciate the game in a different way. Well, you know, I have my series of collectibles, and I think it's kind of fun. We wanted to do something to enhance our First Tee program, and the then executive director, my dear friend Mark Field, was like, I don't know that the kids are going to be interested in this, and why don't you take 10 minutes near the end of the program? And I said, sure, that's great. So he agreed. So I dressed up. I showed up in period with knickers and such, and I set up a table with all these golf clubs and a few other collectibles, and set it on a table so that when the kids walked in, participants walked right by these things, and you know, they went through their program of the day, and they were sort of excited to get to the end because they wanted to hear about this stuff. So I had my 10 minutes, and I took my 10 minutes, and I started answering questions. So they, you know, I showed them a gutty ball in process, a chunk of Malaysian rubber, threw it out there to the audience, and then one that was pressed in a press that had a rim on it and looked like the planet Saturn, and another one that was trimmed but not painted. And I just threw it out, boom, 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 and the guys that caught him and the gals that caught him, I said, come on up here. And I asked them, well, what is this and what is this about? And it took them about 30 seconds to say, well, obviously this is a golf ball. Is this how it started? How is this made? And one question led to another. And about an hour and 10 minutes later, they had one more question. Can we play with some of this stuff? And I said, looked at Mr. Field and said, gee, do you think we could set up a little putting and pitching opportunity for the young people? And he said, of course. And 2 weeks later, we did that. And at the end of that session, they had so much fun, they looked up and said, hey, do you think we could get some other clubs and go out and play a few holes with this kind of equipment? And we said, of course you can. So we sent them out in 3 loops of 3 and said, play a scramble, hit that best ball, and go chase it down. And we let them play 3 holes. Every time I do an event like that, I make them do an application, and they have to tell me who they are and why they want to do it, what they expect to gain from it. And then when they come in, you clean your clubs, you bundle your clubs, and we put them away. And you get a cool drink, and you flip over the application, and on the back is, why did I do this? What did I learn? And what would make it better next time? a typical first tee, good, better, how. What was good, what would be better, and how would that be accomplished? I have a lot of those that I kept. And we have kids that went on to be in the Naval Academy, the Army Academy, contestants to try to come on to the tour who are out there right now. And we laugh when we bump into them because I ask them about that first experience and they remember it. Yeah. So, I think that was the story you were referring to.
Right. Exactly what I was referring to. What's interesting, and I just want to go back for a second to something you had mentioned about earlier. You talked about Shirley Spork and you mentioned Marilyn Smith as well, who, of course, were two of the 13 original founders of the LPGA. And, my co-host on the other program, which I know you've been on, the Women of Golf, which airs Tuesday mornings, we talked this weekend with Debbie Waitkiss, who was a very close confidant of Marilyn Smith. And we talked about really about how Marilyn's legacy, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, because it goes to what you were just talking about, is really helping other generations understand not just who these women were and what happened, but also about the game. And I think when they have an appreciation and an understanding of how the game got started, they actually have an overall appreciation of the game of golf, because really the only exposure most people have is what they see on television, the LPGA and the PGA events. So unless they're raised in right, and so do you find that as well, Bern, when you're dealing with especially some of these youngsters, particularly, or somebody that's maybe not had a lot of early exposure in their life to the game, that once they kind of get a taste of what the Golf Heritage Society does, kind of step back and say, wow, I didn't know that, or I didn't really understand that. Maybe you could share another story with us along that line.
It's really, really true. And, you asked the question that I only partially answered earlier, and it's who's welcome in the Golf Heritage Society. What's everybody? Because we're reaching out to women to let them know that we want to tell the story of American women's golf. And, the African community has a robust history of its own, because they were excluded from PGA participation for many, many years. And the members that we have that tell their own stories, Richie Harris from Philadelphia and Gene Bolden from Michigan. You could sit for hours and listen to American history of how things were back then, and feel a little bit bad for that, but also a little bit good that you now have an appreciation for the full history of the game of golf. So yes, we welcome young people, young golfers, people who have been at it a while, senior golfers, men, women, people of all colors and backgrounds, to come in and understand how wonderful and robust and magnificent the tournament industry and the players, those people, and where they came from and what motivated them. It is just amazing, so it's just a fun opportunity to go where you go in your pursuit of pleasure and understanding and enjoyment of the game of golf.
And well said. And I think it also helps to clarify, certainly a lot of misunderstandings of the game. The game is really for everybody. And certainly most of us will never, no matter how hard we try, may never get to the level of, a Marilyn Smith or Shirley or Tiger Woods or what have you. But we're certainly going to give it our darndest try along the way. But, I've always equated, when I've been teaching now for over 30 years, and this is actually my 31st year. And what's always interesting is I always equate golf to life, because there are so many similarities and crossovers on how our day-to-day life situations and how and what we can learn on the golf course that can help us, and vice versa. And so it's always interesting. So I always say to people, it doesn't matter what your background is or where you're from. You may never make it out on a professional level on tour. Certainly try if that's something that's a desire in your heart. But there are so many great rewards to this game, the camaraderie, just the people that you meet. And the number one thing that I've asked, just going back to something you said about women, really introducing and trying to expand that area even more. One of the number one things that I've heard, particularly from women, is the social aspect of golf is one of the things that really attracted them. It's not just so much getting out there hitting the ball and sinking the putt. It's the social interaction that they have enjoyed while they've gone out and made friends on the golf course. So there's a lot of things I think that can encompass, but it's a matter of educating people. And I think you guys do very well in getting that conversation going. Would I be accurate in my assessment?
You know, you're spot on, Ted. And, one of the first formal Hickory events we invited the young people to, and we told them, and the parents were supporting them to go out and find, appropriate flat hats and different things. And I have this picture, and in that picture's some young people that have become really lifelong friends. And one of the gals thought she was had the talent to advance in the game and spent her last year of high school in Florida, and then went out west to join the junior women's tour. And it didn't work out for her golf professional play, but her experiences have allowed her to advance her career in real estate. So she's in the San Francisco area, and
right.
She's working Olympia club there and playing a lot of golf and having a good career. So I want to tell a story, if I may.
You certainly can.
One of our first tee gatherings that I told you about, the application and the kids go out. Well, we sent them out, and one of the guys had physical limitations that we really didn't know so much about. Hole number 1, Shenley Park in Pittsburgh, 1897. It's a muni. There's a whole story behind it. But, they get down number 1 and they come up number 2. Number 2 is a little bit of a trick to it because you come back up. It's not a steep hill, but then you have to turn right and dogleg and hit over a road. And people say, well, why did they design a golf course like that to have to hit over a road? Well, 1897, there were not automobiles. There were horses.
Right.
So the road came later. Anyway, this one young fellow, his name is Woody. Woody walked down, played number 1, and on the way up number 2 says, I really can't do this. So he quietly withdrew and went over to the side. And we only found out, about an hour or so later, that Woody decided to participate in a different way. He photographed all of his friends having fun, playing Hickory golf, and their smiles, their laughs, their shots, etc. And he had a fabulous time observing and recording their fabulous time. And then he had a project at school, and he decided that he was going to choose old golf as the topic. And he did some research and discovered some old golf courses in America, one that was where he had been playing, Shenley Park. But he also went back to England, and he reached out to the oldest club, Blackheath. And the Blackheath folks sent him materials and became Woody's friend. And his paper, his project at school, obviously was a resounding success. But the point of the story is that Woody didn't enjoy the game by playing it beyond the first hole. Woody enjoyed the game by interacting with his friends, photography of the game of golf, research of the game of golf, and diving deep into the beginnings of the game of golf. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, and it's really a testament to the game itself. There is really no other game, out there the same way. And I think part of the reason is the longevity of the game, number one. It's a game that really you can play well into your later years in life, unlike many other games or sports out there. But also, as I mentioned earlier, it mimics life in so many ways. And what you were saying a few minutes ago about being able to participate even at a different level, where somebody maybe doesn't have the physical skills to win the Masters or what have you. They just want to be a part of it, and they want to benefit from the many opportunities that it presents, whether it's working at a golf course or whether it's just being part of another social group that goes out and has fun. And I remember, and I'll be very brief because I don't want to, take up too much of the time, but, I had a guest on many years ago, not too many years ago, but a few years ago, and she worked in a professional level at a bank, and she talked about how, she would come in on the Monday or what have you and be around the typical, water cooler chats, and she would hear all of the men talking about their golf games on the weekend, and she felt very kind of left out because she didn't play. And finally she approached one, and I'm going to give you the short version, and, struck up a conversation. He basically guided her and said, here's what I would recommend, and he pointed her in the right direction. And, fast forward, she's now bringing women's groups together to have that same experience. And it helped her professionally as well because she was able to, with some lessons and things, of course, but she was able to incorporate that into her business life, which she never really thought of, right, until she met, and spoke to these gentlemen, and the one in particular. And so it creates so many opportunities that people never think of. They just, and that goes to what I said earlier, is most people's exposure is what they see on TV at the tour level. And, it's not surprising. A lot of people say, well, hey, I can't do that. But they don't realize that there's so much more. And that's one of the things that I'm excited about being a new member to the Golf Heritage Society, is to learn more about the ways that you're expanding the game through the various different channels and networks that you're doing. So I just wanted to share that with you because it kind of goes along with what you've been talking about and some of the stories that you've shared. But
no, it's great, Ted. It sort of takes a step toward the area of collectibles. And, with the kids, I think there was a realistic concern. Well, what is Bern doing? Is he trying to make these kids consumers and of golf collectibles? Not at all. Exposing them to the artifacts of the game, the balls, clubs, and equipment, yeah, it's kind of fun. But there are other collectibles that people do as entry level, and it's young people, but it's also every age. Who doesn't have some sentimental value collectibles? It's that scorecard, the first time you broke 100, or the time that you played with your parents as a kid, pencils from that U.S. Open venue had the opportunity to play, and it goes on and on and on. So our application shows collecting interests because, as I said earlier, that is our core, that was our origin. And, people collect books, and then, well, what kind of golf books? Is it architecture? Is it biographies? There's so many different subgroups, and that's where having a friend, a mentor, an advisor, you ask someone, well, who does this? Who knows about this or that? And, we have those people, and connecting our members to help a member go in the right direction for research or collectibles and pursuing these things, that is a major value for your $50 a year membership. Like I said, it's the best value in the game of golf. So, it's there's so many beautiful entrees with golf, as you said, that woman getting together in fellowship with other folks. And then, the collectibles lead to friendships and mentorships and lifelong friendships. That's why at the convention it'll be such a blast to see people you haven't seen for a year or even two, and especially around COVID. Everybody's,
right,
coming out of the woodwork to get together again. So.
Yeah, I think, and that was one of the reasons I enjoyed, for a multitude of reasons, but one of the reasons I enjoyed coming back to the PGA show in Orlando this year. I hadn't been back since prior to COVID, and for that same reason, it was, a lot of challenges and whatnot. But there's so many great things that are offered through the Golf Heritage Society. Again, whether it's the collectibles, whether it's the artwork, or just the networking opportunities that can get presented. And as you said, for $50, it's the best deal in town. That's less than most golf courses charge you for a round of golf, and you get access to really a history of the game and so many other great avenues as well, and get to appreciate that through that. So I'm very, very excited to be part of that, and I look forward to navigating around and looking at some of the archives and things that you mentioned earlier, and learning more myself. But as we get ready to wrap up here in the last few minutes, what would you like to leave for the audience as sort of some closing thought, Heritage Society, that maybe you haven't shared so far, or you want to sort of leave some final thoughts with them?
Well, I want to repeat the website address, golfheritage.org. Folks who take a look and decide to become a member, we'll see that there's a variety of ways that you can enjoy the game. A person can join online, or they can request a written application and send it in. And we don't have sponsorships that you need to be approved. We're welcoming young and old, as I said, and men, women, people from everywhere, all backgrounds. So we delight in appreciating the history and the traditions of the game, getting together, having fun together, learning from each other, teaching each other, and sharing opportunities to expand collections and mentor those who are kind of just starting out. So golfheritage.org is a good way to start. You can find some phone numbers to call regional directors, myself, and our world headquarters in Pittsburgh, because it's my medical office, and we have space to house our stuff. These are the opportunities out there. Come to Lexington in October. It's our Hall of Fame induction banquet will be October 13th. The 14th will be our giant trade show, and we're delighted to invite the public free to the trade show. And I'm sure that the public is welcome to come to the hotel and meet individuals and start to learn about all the different aspects that represent the beauty and mystique of the old game of golf. So there you have it, Ted.
Well said. And again, the website is golfheritage.org, O-R-G. And the national convention that Bern was just talking about is taking place October 11th to the 14th at the Embassy Suites Hotel in Lexington, Kentucky. So if you're going to be up around that way, or you want to head out that way, you can learn a lot about what we talked about and more up there at the convention, and get a chance to see firsthand exactly what we're talking about. Well, Dr. Bern, I want to thank you very much for joining me once again. It's always a pleasure, and as I said, I always learn something new every time you come on the show, so I'm going to have to keep having you come back again on future shows. But much continued success in helping to spread the heritage of this great game, and I look forward to learning more myself as I surf around and partake in some of the resources that are available. The website again is golfheritage.org, O-R-G. But thank you very much for joining me tonight once again on Golf Talk Live.
Ted, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be with you and your audience. And again, we welcome you to the organization and the society, and everybody who's out there. So come one, come all. Thanks, Ted.
All right. You have a great evening, great weekend. All right. Thanks. All right, that was the president of the Golf Heritage Society, Dr. Bernacki, joining me once again. And again, if you go to golfheritage.org is the website, you can join there. It's as I did, it's just $50 a year, less than what you would pay at most golf courses, just one time. But you can get a wealth of information. Also, they post a lot of events. There's a lot of different tournaments and that both they sponsor and are involved with, and others as well in certain regions. So maybe you might want to participate or get involved in that. So there's lots of good information on there. And if you're somebody that's interested in some of the collectibles, as he was talking about, you might want to step up to the, again, if you're going to be in the area, go to the National Convention. And I believe he said on the 13th, they were going to have a trade show and have an opportunity to see some of the collectibles and all kinds of things there. So, again, go to golfheritage.org. All right. Thanks again for joining me tonight on Golf Talk Live, and thanks to both panelists, John Decker and Sue Weger, earlier on Coach's Corner panel. Thanks, guys, for always doing a great job. And on that note, I will see you next week right here on Golf Talk Live. God bless everybody, and have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this week's broadcast of Golf Talk Live. We'd like to thank this week's Coach's Corner panel, and a special thank you to tonight's guest. Remember to join Ted every Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Central on Golf Talk Live. And be sure to follow Ted on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you're interested in being a guest on Golf Talk Live, send Ted an email at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.